back to Climate Cuisine, my little video series on sustainable cooking. Today's episode will be focused around dry goods, and specifically I mean beans. Beans are a great way to get nutrients during the winter seasons when you're not really growing a lot of fresh produce, and dried beans last year round. You can find beans in a bag, dried or bulk dried, in most grocery stores. I went to one of my semi-health foods grocery stores and they sell a lot of stuff in bulk, so you can either take a jar or your own bag, or my store had some little cloth bags that you could use that you can put your beans in and buy them, and you can also do this to buy a lot of other dried goods. I chose pinto beans today because they are grown in my region and they're also very versatile and delicious. Today I will be making burrito bowls with my beans, and that's just one option that you can make with them. You can also make actual burritos or tacos, or just have a bowl of beans with cornbread is also a really good idea. Anyways, let's get into the recipe. For this recipe, you're going to need dried beans. I'm using pinto beans, rice, avocado, corn, red bell pepper, tomato, jalapeno, lime, garlic, yellow onion, cilantro, and greens or lettuce. And the seasonings you will use are salt, pepper, red pepper flakes, and cumin. So the first step of this recipe is to prep your beans. So you're going to take your bag of dried beans and put them in a bowl, and then you can sort out the ones that are cut in half or dried up or don't look so good. After picking out the beans that you don't want to cook, you're going to rinse them. After that, you're just going to put them in a large bowl and fill it up with water. You probably want about double the amount of water that you have beans. That way, when your beans soak overnight, they will basically double in size and it will soak up all of the water that you put. After soaking your beans overnight or for the full day before you're cooking, you're going to want to cook your beans. So in order to do this, you're going to put them in a large pot. I use my Dutch oven. You can use whatever you have. You fill the pot with your soaked beans, and about 10 cups of water is what I use for 1 pound of beans. So if you have a different amount of beans that you're wanting to cook, you can go ahead and look up how much water you're going to need. And the same goes for if you're using a different type of bean. You can look it up just to make sure your portions are correct. Once your pot is full of your beans and water, you're going to salt your water pretty generously. You want to do this to flavor your beans. Salt is, in my opinion, the best ingredient that we can put with our food. And then you can add some garlic. I added about 5 cloves. And I just peeled the garlic and put the cloves in whole, and they're really delicious. And then throughout the process, I continued to season my beans. But first, you want to bring your pot of beans up to a boil and then turn it down until it's simmering. And you want to go ahead and cover your pot. Now, occasionally, you do want to keep your eyes on your beans, just because at one point it did start to overflow for me, so you just blow it down, lift the lid. You can even put the lid mostly on, leaving a little crack for the steam from the boiling water. You're going to want to cook your beans for around 2 hours, is how long it took mine, stirring about every 20 to 30 minutes. After stirring your beans around and letting them cook for 2 hours, they should be delicious and ready to go. So a good idea to do is to prep all of your ingredients for your burrito bowl while your beans are cooking. So the first thing that I prepared was my pico de gallo. So this combines diced tomato, onion, jalapeno, and lime juice. Another optional thing that makes it really delicious if you like it is adding cilantro. I love cilantro personally, but I know a lot of people don't. So obviously, if you don't like it, you don't have to add that. So for the portion of this, it's usually pretty much up to you. You can kind of do everything to taste. So my pico de gallo consisted of 2 diced tomatoes, half a diced onion, 1.5 diced jalapeno based on how I like the spice in my pico. I added the rest of my jalapeno to my beans, and then I added the juice of 1 whole lime and a handful of diced cilantro. I also added salt and pepper to taste to my pico. It's really great to add salt because it adds the depth of flavor of the tomato and the other ingredients. I also made roasted corn for my burrito bowl. So I took a bag of frozen corn and I cooked it up on my pan with a little bit of olive oil, salt, pepper, and red chili flakes. And I went ahead and I let it cook until it charred really nicely. After my corn was done, I set it aside and continued to make the rest of my ingredients. Another thing is that corn is not really in season right now. It's usually in season in the fall. So due to this, I used frozen corn because first of all, there wasn't corn in the grocery store that I was at. And using frozen produce is a really good way to get the freshness out of some produce when it is out of season. Supposedly, the brand of corn that I use had sustainably certified on the packaging. Now, you never know, this could be greenwashing, and greenwashing just means you're advertising something as sustainable or ethically green without any real certifications. So you want to keep a special eye out for stuff like this. I took their advertising with a grain of salt, but I did want frozen corn and chose this brand of corn over a different one. You're also welcome to use canned corn or cob corn if you can find it, but I really do want to advertise that you should be conscious of the amount of the global food system that you are using. This is one of the key points in eating sustainably. Like I mentioned in my last video, eating locally is one of the greatest ways you can eat sustainably. So just make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. I still use produce in this recipe such as bell pepper and tomato and avocado that weren't in season, but I had them and I wanted to eat them. And as long as you're conscious of this global versus local food system and trying to work with the two in order to be more sustainable, then you're already on a really great track. The next ingredient that I prepared was my rice. So I only had medium grain white rice in my house at the time that had enough to make for this recipe. You're welcome to use brown rice or long grain white rice, which is kind of more commonly used in a burrito, or it's really just depending on what you like and what you have. So I went ahead and cooked my rice per its instructions on the bag with my rice cooker. I used 2 cups of rice, and then once it was finished cooking, I tossed it with some salt, the juice of 1 lime, and some more chopped cilantro to make cilantro lime rice, which is really delicious in this recipe. Again, if you're not a fan of cilantro, you don't have to add it. Now, I really wanted to talk about portions in this video because I kind of used a difference of portion sizes when I made my different ingredients. For example, I used a whole pound of beans and I made some less of some other things. For this recipe, I was specifically cooking for 2 plus leftovers. I really like to make a big thing of food, so I have leftovers over the week as a college student. Now, something to be conscious of is if you actually eat and like leftovers. I know people that don't personally, and that's totally fine, but it's something that's really good to address in terms of sustainability in eating. If this is the case and you're not really one to eat leftovers, the best thing to do is to cut back on recipes that you make. If you're making my recipe and you don't really like leftovers, you can definitely make the portion sizes smaller. Kind of think about, how much of this am I going to eat in a bowl? Am I cooking for more than one person or just one person? Am I cooking for a family? This sort of thing is really good to be conscious about, and again, a great way to be sustainable in the kitchen. This is a great way to be conscious and reduce your food waste. Just be honest with yourself. If you like leftovers or not, there's no shame in not liking them. There's no shame in liking them. It just comes down to personal preference and being conscious. So once you have prepped all of your ingredients and your beans are done cooking, it is time to build your burrito bowl. I added a few more things to my bowl that didn't really take a lot of prep, such as some sliced red bell pepper, sliced avocado, and some mixed greens. This is a great way to add some more nutrition to your meal and spice it up. So that's going to be all for my video today. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed and you go ahead and try out yourself making some beans. It's honestly a really easy recipe I find you can start with. And again, I hope you consider how much food you usually eat and how much you want to make if you're making this recipe, to be conscious about leftover use and food waste. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you did, you can like, comment, subscribe to my channel. I will be putting out 4 more videos in this series. Again, thank you so much for watching and your support on my first couple of videos. I really appreciate it, and I love sharing this type of thing and these passions of mine. Again, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!